Hello tanks and tankettes, welcome to a viewer replay. This one is courtesy of LethalWalou, and he is in the tier 8 French medium tank, the AMX CDC, or the Char de Baguette as it's popularly known. I don't quite know why, but you know, it's French and therefore baguette. Yes, reasons. He's not platooned up with anybody, and that will become kind of relevant later on. He's also got pretty good matchmaking, because although this is technically a tier 9 match, it's actually pretty heavy on the tier 8s. There is one thing that might count for or against them though. The enemy team has got 2 tier 9 heavies, his team doesn't. Now, at least both sides have a T-54, which is nice, but Centurion 7-1 is not really a stand-in for a heavy tank, although it has got a pretty nice gun, having said that. But the reason why it might count for or against them, well, on some maps, having more top-tier mediums than the enemy team can be a good thing. But on other maps, having top-tier heavies can be a better thing. And on this map, well, there's that particular heavy choke point in the southeast corner, so it just kind of depends on the players, and it kind of depends on the rest of the team, what they do, how they respond, how their tier 8 heavies can cope. He's come to this position in the middle here, and you usually see scouts here. And talking of scouts, that's a T-49 that's going a bit ham. Walou must have optics. I mean, I'm just going to take that guess. I don't think it's much of a guess, to be honest, but optics are very, very useful on this tank, and it now allows you to spot enemies, to be able to take snapshots as he is doing. That T-49, by the way, that was the one and only shot he took. He saw an AMX CDC. I don't know if it was actually that or if he just decided to run to this position anyway, but he saw an AMX CDC, ran up to him, fired, missed, tried to back off, and that was his game. So that's some pro T-49 playing right there. Walou is, I think, just trying to spot things here. He's just popping up, taking snapshots, pulling back, and although this is a decent position for a tank with good gun depression, he really has no armour to work with, so he can't afford to sit around. He's got to really snapshot where possible, and oh, there we go, his 6th sense just went off, so pulls back, but he did get a shot to that T-43, so that was quite nice. The advantage of this is that you can pull back, become unspotted, and have a slight advantage of surprise when you go back out again to take another shot, to have another peek. But of course, by that point the enemy know that you're there, so they are more likely to have guns trained on your position, so you really have to be careful when you're doing this. And actually you can see that enemy artillery taking an interest, and that was kind of lucky. It didn't really do any damage. This thing takes a lot of damage from HE shells. If the T-49 had hit him, although, you know, he probably still would have died himself in the process, that really was not good play, it could have seriously messed up Walou's tank. It could have, if it had penned, it could have done multiple module and multiple crew damage, because this thing, yeah, it's not tough. It's a good medium tank, and it's one of the better premium medium tanks, but it's definitely not tough. Now, one of the things it does have going for it, which is pretty nice, is that ubiquitous even, long French 90mm gun, which is a pretty solidly reliable gun. Now, the other French tier 8 premium with this has limited matchmaking, the FCM 50T. But even the 50T, it can kind of cope with tier 10s. I mean, for Foch, it was, for a long while, his main, in fact I think his only tier 8 premium tank, so he basically played it a lot and just platooned up with people with regular tier 8s, was able to do alright for himself in tier 10 battles. But you know, this is Foch we're talking about here. He's a really good player, but in the right hands, this gun in a tier 10 battle, it's fine. And this gun in this kind of matchmaking, it's not a lot of damage, but with this amount of pen and this, you know, to 240 alpha, it can add up. You just have to keep getting the shots off. And this thing, fortunately, at least does carry a decent supply of ammo, so it's not hampered that way as some low damage machines are, like, for instance, the Challenger, or anything with the 17-pounder, really. Although I think the Challenger has by far the worst ammo count of any of the 17-pounder machines. Or maybe I'm making that up, I can't remember. Anyway, I just know it's bad. So the team in the southeast, well, they ran into the tier 9 heavies and they're just getting taken apart. It's quite hard to take that corner with artillery being on this map, and also with inferior numbers, and they've just gotten picked apart basically. They didn't wait for the enemy team to come around to them. They tried to go for the enemy team, and they're just steadily losing tanks. Walou, meanwhile, came back to aid the Centurion 7-1, who has driven all the way over the open to K3, which is a good hold-down position, but he had to drive quite far to get there at 40 kilometers an hour, and probably took a good chunk of damage in the process. So I'm not quite sure why that Centurion backed off that far, but meanwhile, the other Centurion, the Tier 8 Centurion, has also come to Walou's position to basically halt this advance of enemy mediums, because there wasn't really a lot on the 1-2 line to oppose these guys. So they were able to just come around more or less unopposed. The T-54 that was with Walou, meanwhile, has gone up to A4, A5, and Walou, meanwhile, he looks like, I mean, initially I thought he was maybe going to go up to where the T-54 was. I don't quite know why I thought that, but he's actually going to try and flank these mediums, and the Centurion 1 follows him, although the Centurion's not the fastest. But he gets distracted a bit here, I think, and he tries to take the kill shot on that Jagdpanther, but the T-54 just beats him to it. And honestly, the T-54 does seem like he's coping fine with being versus a Tier 8 and a Tier 7. And most Tier 9 mediums would probably do relatively okay in that situation, but the T-54 especially, yeah, no, he doesn't really need any help. So he takes out the Type 59. The north is pretty much secure for now. So Walou is nearly in position, and he's about to have some very bad luck indeed. That's the side of an STA-1, and it bounces! Yeah, that RNG sometimes is a bit ridiculous. The auto-aims pops out, fires again. The reload on this is pretty good, and this time he gets a bit luckier. And for that kind of shot, actually, auto-aiming is very, very useful. You can minimise your exposure. You don't have to sit and manually aim, and for a squashy target like that, well, it's nearly guaranteed to go through, but as we can see, even sometimes nearly guaranteed shots will bounce. So there's a Centurion unaccounted for. We can see the minimap trace. The T-54, well, he doesn't have the usual T-54 gun. That's interesting information. He's firing premium APCR rather than heat. So I don't know what gun that is on the T-54, but it ain't the usual one. Walou, meanwhile, gets a shot into the side of the 110, but it bounces, and the 110 side armor's not great, but it's troll enough that it will be more likely to give bounces than the side of an STA-1, for example. But he gets killed by the Centurion 7-1, so that's fine. The T-54's kind of pinned down at the moment, and the enemy Centurions popped up behind them. Now, their T-54 has died at some point in this, so that's why the Centurion's been able to get up behind them. There's also an IS-6 and a KV-5 left alive, as well as enemy artillery. The Centurion that's with him, though, is responding very well to the situation. He's still nearly full health as well. Luckily, he took that enemy Centurion shot in the track, so he hasn't lost any more health. Walou himself did take a hit, and he's now down to not that much. He's a 1 or 2 shot kill for most of the enemy team, and artillery, well, artillery could seriously mess him up. Centurion, meanwhile, well, he's taken the kind of the more obvious route, and I think Walou just decided that, again, using his mobility was a good idea here, and he's also loading up the Prem ammo. And the moment he loads up the Prem ammo, well, that's when the KV-5 appears, and that cost him a shot there. Although the regular ammo might have bounced, but as it is, the KV-5 pops out, and Walou is able to get that on the move, which is rather nice. However, the T-54 by now definitely knows he's coming. But this is a 2 versus 1 situation, and it's lucky the KV-5 was that low health. So clearly the tanks, the allied tanks on the southeast corner, weren't just sitting on their thumbs. They weren't just getting massacred. They were actually putting up a stiff fight. And so maybe that gives us a good chance of the IS-6 being low health as well. Because if the IS-6 turns up and he's full health, well, yeah, that could make things a bit trickier. And there's artillery taking a pot shot at him. The Centurion, though, I mean, he still managed to keep most of his health, and that's going to be really useful. It's not like the Centurion has particularly great armor either, especially in the hull, but the turret is actually quite good. So if he can at least get to a decent hull down position, and oh well, never mind, there's the IS-6, and he is reasonably low health, and the Centurion gets a nice hit in, so he's now basically a one-shot. And Walou goes for the side of the turret and gets it. I don't think that was exactly the best aimed shot. I think it was a slightly rushed shot, because whereas Reticle was aiming wasn't exactly where the shell went in, so RNG actually aided him there. He kind of, I don't know, I guess RNG kind of felt pity for him for that earlier shot on the ST1 and went, okay, here you go, have one back, okay. So he gets the kill in the IS-6's turret, which is very useful, and it's now just down to enemy artillery. So they've basically got this now, and I did start off saying that nobody was in a, he wasn't in a platoon, but there was one other person in a platoon, and the Centurion 1's platoon mate was actually, it was a bit of a failed platoon, but he was in a Super Pershing. Super Pershing has premium matchmaking. The CDC, not the CDC, the Centurion obviously doesn't, but maybe the Super Pershing was just planning to spam premium ammo if they got tier 10s. I don't know. It does have really good premium penetration, the Super Pershing. It's like almost 250. It's pretty good. Anyway, but as it's turned out, I mean, that wasn't the platoon that mattered. It was the platoon that wasn't that was, as it were, if that made any sense. They've actually managed to effectively work together as a medium tank platoon despite not being in the same platoon. And between them, they've carried this match rather nicely. Now, you'll be unsurprised maybe to see that although LethalWalou did do pretty well for himself, and he got a Confederate medal out of that and made a rather healthy profit, it's actually the Centurion 1 that came top of that team, and I think deservedly so. The Centurion did a lot of work there, and Walou couldn't have done it without the Centurion, but I don't think the Centurion could have done it without Walou as well. And as you can see, there you go, nearly over 1300 base XP. Walou got just about 1200 base XP, and between them, that was over 5000 damage, so that was pretty good. And there you go, you can see Learning Camper, the Centurion 1 player, who did very well for himself. 5 for Effect, Bruiser, Duelist, and Top Gun. There were actually a lot of Duelists and, what was the other one? 5 for Effect. So there were a lot of medals awarded to each team, and it was mostly either Duelist or 5 for Effect medals. And I don't know if that's a usual thing, because I don't usually pay attention to those, but I just noticed it when I was looking through. Anyway, so this was a very profitable game, nearly 120,000 credits when all was said and done, so he had to be very pleased about that. But I think mostly he would have just been pleased that he was able to work together with that Centurion, that the Centurion turned out to be a very effective player, which, you look at that kind of platoon, somebody with a regular tier 8 and platooning up with a limited matchmaking premium, and you usually facepalm a bit because you kind of assume that, okay, they don't really know what they're doing, but maybe they knew exactly what they were doing. As I said, maybe the Super Pershing was just going to spam a bunch of APCR and not worry about credit. So that turned out to be irrelevant and completely wrong. He was actually a pretty good player, or at least good enough to work well with Walou to make that a win, and it was a very good win indeed. So if you enjoyed this replay, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can subscribe to my channel, and as always, stay tuned for more.